There was a lot of speculation on what First Light was going to be. Now that it's been revealed, let's talk about what it is, and this is what we know so far. Welcome, my friends, to the world of HeroQuest, a place unlike any other. This is the Fair Weatherman. If you like what you see, please subscribe and help me grow the channel to 100 followers by next week. Over the past month, I've searched the internet looking for any and all information about First Light. I poked around in online forums, I watched countless videos in foreign languages, and I browsed through the small amount of photos uploaded to the internet, with hopes to see a glimpse of something from Gen Con. And now I've gathered it all in one place to share with you. Most of the information gathered was from two separate interviews from Gen Con on XSC3's YouTube channel with game designer Doug Hopkins and product manager Patrick O'Rourke. Let's kick things off with the most controversial aspect of this release, the box art. If you've been deep in the dungeon fighting Zargon's minions the past few months, it may be news to you that the backlash from the fanbase was heated a few short weeks ago after Avalon Hill unveiled the first glimpse of First Light online. The fans, with good intention, pored over the artwork trying to get some idea what would be inside the box. This soon led to disappointment on a large scale, leaving some to speculate the authenticity of the artwork created by artist Clark Mitchell. Many believed his finished work utilized AI-generated imagery. Avalon Hill downplayed the AI possibility and stood behind its creator, stating, "Their goal is to always support artists and creators, and they have a strict company policy of no finished work is allowed to have AI-assisted artwork." But after gauging the community reaction online, a few weeks later, it was revealed at Gen Con that they made a decision to change the cover out of fear of backlash against the product. Luckily for them, mass production wasn't underway, and they can replace the art without causing any hiccups in release time, which is still unannounced at the time of this video. Patrick O'Rourke said, "Avalon Hill strives to produce product that players are happy and excited to see." This box was dead on arrival for a large portion of fans. Personally, I believe the change was a wise choice, as the final product is an eye-catching piece of work. It's great to know that Avalon Hill listens to fans. So how did we get here? How have we gone from a re-release to a reimagination of a re-release? To answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. In the late 1980s, game designer Stephen Baker moved from Games Workshop to Milton Bradley and convinced Roger Ford, Milton Bradley's head of development, to allow him to develop a fantasy genre game. Kennedy gave him the go-ahead if he kept the game simple. Baker contracted his former employer, Games Workshop, to develop the plastic miniatures that would be needed in the game. He then decided to draw on their expertise in the fantasy game field to help develop the game. The result was the fantasy adventure board game HeroQuest, in which the players worked together against the game master. The game has been out of print for almost 3 decades. Director Jeffrey Anderson from Hasbro Games bought the HeroQuest trademark in September of 2020. This allowed Avalon Hill, a subsidiary of Hasbro, to create a crowdfunded campaign for $1 million to produce an updated edition of HeroQuest with new figures, Keller's Keep, and Return of the Witchlord expansions. Funding was achieved within 24 hours, with Hasbro expecting to ship in late 2021. The rest is history. So how does First Light fit into the current offerings? With 9 expansions released to date, 2 Hero Quest packs, and 1 exclusive Mythic tier release, at this point the game is rather intimidating to get into. Where do you start? What's essential and what's optional? Is there an order? The original game system is just a launching pad into the greater world of HeroQuest. First Light makes me wonder, has HeroQuest come full circle? What is HeroQuest? HeroQuest is essentially a large sandbox that allows players to use their imagination, along with a set of simple game mechanics, to create a world of endless dungeon crawling adventures. The boundaries are at the limits of your creativity. Because of the vast amount of freedom the system grants players, there's been no official expansion order. Editions are created to be played in any order, allowing players to get what they want and not feel pressured to purchase everything. Although I personally fall in the camp of, I must have it all, like I'm sure many of my subscribers do as well. Avalon Hill has made a point to stay on the sidelines of cases involving official answers on the gray area of rules and questions about the game mechanics. Gameplay is left to be simplistic at times for game masters and dungeon crawlers to be interpreted in their own ways. As Doug Hopkins puts it, the games are a social contract between friends. As long as people are playing around the table, it's a win. And at the steep price tag of a completed original 1989 box set, or even the re-release copy, every time I open the box and scuff up the corners, I understand I'm getting my money's worth. But does everyone else feel the same? HeroQuest encourages players to play in fun and unique ways that add to the group experience. Homebrew your own rules for custom gameplay. Purchase sculpts online and use the HeroQuest card builder to make your own mechanics. Put whatever you like in your dungeon. I don't care. I've added owlbears to mine. Who's to say I can't? New expansions are shiny new trinkets to add to the sandbox of HeroQuest content, giving players new monster sculpts and advanced game mechanics, expanding upon new world building and taking us to new locations. I appreciate that there's no specific order of content, otherwise I'd still be working through Keller's Keep for gosh sake. I almost like that there's no dependency on the completion of previous expansion content to enjoy the latest release. If the box speaks to you, get in there and play it with your friends. If you don't, it's just plastic on a shelf. So what is HeroQuest First Light? From what I've gathered, First Light is designed as its own Expandalone game to give players an affordable introduction to HeroQuest. Avalon Hill has noted that if the players enjoy playing the game, it's fully compatible with all the expanded content. This is not a typical expansion, running about $50, a cheaper price point for new players which might be turned off by the pricier box and figures. Do I have to paint them all? The thought can be overwhelming. This smaller box contains everything one needs to get started, with the intention for the shelves of big box retailers. This edition includes heroes we've seen before, but sport all new sculpts with a more childish look, possibly because of their new target audience. Let's keep it cartoony and fun for the kids. Monsters are represented by thick cardboard standees, except for the impressive Black Dragon Mini. It appears we may be getting a new dread spell, Draconic Flight, which allows them to move, attack, move. There's a new GM screen, and for the first time, a double-sided game board, featuring what appears to be a brighter colored dungeon, and a new cavern theme on the underside. An excellent opportunity for a custom quest, and/or Infinite Dungeon from Axiom Quest. There are 10 new quests written by one of the original creators, Stephen Baker. These quests are meant to run alongside the core box, an either-or starting point. Doug pointed out that the expansions are always play-tested with new characters. It's not necessary to arrive at the dungeon door with plate mail and a battle axe. There's an opportunity here to create new personas. Guests at Gen Con play-tested the Expandalone and found subtle changes to the dwarf card, with the short sword starting weapon exchanged for a hand axe, a more suitable choice, considering the Mini never brandished a sword. I also heard some on video mention the small changes around search mechanics, giving players special components and extra abilities, like the fireplace healing 1 body point, and the cupboard allowing players to draw 2 treasure cards instead of the standard 1. Similar to many homebrew search tables and cards the fandom has created. And the beautiful artwork from the companion app has made its way to the table on everything from furniture to the monsters and even the small rats. From what it sounds, First Light is exactly what Avalon Hill said it was going to be all along, an experience geared towards players who have yet to dive in, who are a little or a lot intimidated by the current core offerings and may be a bit hesitant to drop big dollars on the current full game. And yes, there's something for existing fans as well, thus making this a fine purchase for new players or those already invested in the game. Patrick O'Rourke hinted on a possible exclusive in-store launch, with the intention to get it on as many shelves as possible. I would imagine a Christmas season release. I would be all over this if I was a kid again. The fantasy box art, the colorful game board and monsters, with the chance to explore a dungeon with my friends, never knowing when the dragon will appear out of the shadows. It brings back memories of how I felt as an 8-year-old in 1989. I want this to be a win for Avalon Hill, and in turn a win for HeroQuest fans. Why wouldn't we? I'll admit, I was on the fence initially, but the more I thought about what this could do for the relatively small HeroQuest team at Avalon Hill, the more I realized the future looks bright for future releases. Wizards of Morcar, The Crypt of Perpetual Darkness. Hey, I can have hope. If the fan base is vocal enough, they might consider the possibilities. In regards to the difficulty around snagging the Path of the Wandering Monks and the Rogue Heir of Elithorn, O'Rourke alluded that future runs on these products are dependent upon what players want to play with. If the demand is high, there will be more. In the meantime, I'll continue to let my fear of missing out control my pocketbook. It's clear Avalon Hill listens to its fans, as they jump into online forums from time to time to hear what's being talked about. I'm confident they will continue to consider what we have to say, but let's not limit the possibilities and stifle their creative process. I would never have imagined a Velociraptor with the ability to open doors running loose in the dungeons of HeroQuest, but somehow it works. If they miss the mark on future releases, I have no doubt they will know. What an enormous task it must be to take on a brand with such a loyal fan base, and not only re-release what's so beloved, but attempt to build on its legacy. I know how whiny we sound at times, picking apart artwork on a box, and I know it's all in an attempt to create something that feels handcrafted and to preserve what we love about HeroQuest. But I'm sure there are many times they've had to stop and question if they're doing the right thing. But after a long reflection, over the last few years of new content, I've come to the conclusion that HeroQuest is in the best hands at Avalon Hill. After all, the best thing about HeroQuest is always more HeroQuest. Thank you so much for joining me in the dungeons today. If you like what you hear, please share with your friends. Tell them about the channel. I enjoy making content about the game I love, and I'm happy to share it with you. As always, your very survival depends on your ability to work together, for no true hero stands alone. Come, let the quest begin.